An Indian perspective is Akshay Chaturvedi. He's the founder and CEO of Leverage Edu that works on sending young people outside of India for education. Remember, many people today who've lost their jobs will be struggling to get a work visa. So, Akshay, I'm sure a lot of young people looking at this will have questions for you, even about the studying stage. Let me bring in Akshay from an Indian perspective. Your sort of platform, Leverage Edu, works on sending young people, or incentivizing them to study outside of India, and not in the typical markets and universities necessarily. Young people today will be looking at this bloodbath and saying, is there a future? Now, I'm not saying every young person wants to get into tech. There are many other new opportunities that have opened out, Akshay. But as a young entrepreneur and the founder of a startup yourself, are you worried?
No, first of all, it's extremely all said and done. There could be multiple cycles, and we could write thesis and big LinkedIn posts and all of those things. But the reality is that this is extremely sad for Dashil and tens of thousands of people who've actually lost their jobs, who have a family to provide. I think it's extremely it's not been done in the right way. This was unwarranted, and maybe things will come back to better. But it is what it is today. We can of course look into the future and say that okay, 3 months, 6 months, 10 months later, everything will be fine. Another cycle will start. We'll have Web 10. But it is what it is today. We did a survey of about 1,000 people who had gone to the US last year using our platform, and we had 50% plus people who were able to get back into a job, but which was 30% less than the previous job. You have to also realize that US is a very deep, of course, like Ms. Montfani said, it's got a lot of capital out there, but it's also very deep, very layered market. You have 3,500 universities there. So you have people from the top 100, 150 universities who end up going to the likes of big four, the big tech, the Amazon and then the Metas and the Googles. But you have a large set of people. You have hundreds of thousands of people who are going to slightly less known companies. For those people, this has relatively been slightly easy. They've been able to get into jobs, sub $100,000 jobs, if I may say so. And people who have essentially, fortunately or unfortunately, been at slightly higher salaries because of the way the job market was moving. They had multiple offers coming their way. They picked up the best option. And I think now that rationalization has kind of come through. They will, of course, I'm very confident that they will find jobs which are slightly lesser than what they were getting at an Amazon or a Google or a Meta. That said, it is where it is today. And but I largely think that post this rationalization, the American dream or the British dream or the Canadian dream, that still stays alive. But you have to, of course, realize that it's not all as gloomy as you always think it would be, and you have to kind of figure out how you finance it, how you're going to pay it back.
Yeah. Akshay, one of the big debates ongoing in India isn't just about technology startups, but about startups in general, right? You have this constant debate, especially when startups get listed. Were they overvalued? That's a huge current debate on in India. So there's going to be a larger spill, as it were, from this tech debate to startups in general. How do you see that as the founder of a startup?
Sure. No, if you see startups, right, startup layoffs have to be seen very differently from the big tech layoffs. In the big tech layoffs, you have shareholder management, you have a bet like metaverse that did not work and things like that. But a lot of founders, including myself, are folks who haven't gone through multiple cycles, are folks who essentially who haven't gone through a phase where certain decisions essentially won't add up. The math won't add up when you kind of just hiring through the boom. You are preparing for your next round, Series C, D, E, F, G, H, all the way out, and you realize that okay, this has to be a certain 2 years budgeted in as well. So Satyan and Ella is well poised as a 25-year-old leader. Somebody's kind of been doing that for a long while to do that. But a young founder, of course, and hence they would need the right VCs, the right board to kind of come in, support them, and tell them that okay, you mute your growth expectations. They would essentially step back 6 months back and say that okay. So I did that. In sometime in October, and Anshu is a shareholder in my company. I sent out a shareholder letter saying that we're not going to grow the same way that we did in the last 2 years because we believe this is coming through, and we don't want to lay off anybody. And I think it's just about better management at the end of startups, and
And that would be
they're
my
getting better
old
support as well.
And that would be my old fashioned question. Akshay, I'll start with you. It's a point you've been making as well: capital management, shareholder management, not to surrender simply to your investors breathing down your neck saying, hey, what's your stock value? And if that's what they're doing, then find other ways to at least protect the least earning people in your company. That said, At some point, if a department isn't working, it isn't yielding returns, you may have to take the tough decision of closing down something that's no longer working. How do you balance those two impulses, Akshay?
No, but that's a job, right? That's a job. Strategy, capital allocation, and be able to foresee. That's a job. So the CEO is not doing better, or the CEO and the management team is not doing well if they're kind of not being able to do that. So you have to be able to foresee. You have to be able to kind of speak to enough people out in the open. You have to be able to start allocating capital in a much better way when you see something like this is going to happen. By the way, this is not new. Everything that is happening right now, we knew about this 6 months out, 8 months out, 9 months out. People were talking about this even in April last year. So could CEOs not take better decisions and do all the things that are being discussed in the panel over the last 9 months? Not pay out bonuses, take some salary off for the leadership in those 8 or 9 months, and then maybe you could have avoided what is happening right now. So I think, of
I
course,
think that's a great question. I think that's a
the
great
leadership
question.
has to take some blame
Can
for
I
not
can I
doing that.
can I, leadership has to take some blame.